After the Sega Dreamcast bit the dust in 2001, Sega started making their games for other home consoles on the market. In the early years of the 6th generation, Xbox got a few nice exclusives such as Jet Set Radio Future and the US release of Shenmue 2, partly because Sega themselves saw Xbox as a successor to the Dreamcast. The PlayStation 2 got Shinobi. The GameCube, however, was the place to be if you were a Sega fan. I mean, Sega released Sonic Adventure 1 and Sonic Adventure 2 for the GameCube exclusively, with new features and new modes. Sonic Mega Collection came to the platform first, and they even helped make an F-Zero game for the platform. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that. Sega made the F-Zero GX game on the GameCube. On top of that, Sega's new and original series, Super Monkey Ball, was also released exclusively to the Nintendo GameCube. So PS2 and Xbox owners who wanted to play these games were told to go kick rocks. In the middle of the console generation, Sega finally started to expand their support for both the Xbox and the PlayStation 2. Their games were less often exclusives and more often released on all consoles. Along with this, Sega also brought over already made games to these consoles and beefed them up, and so eventually Super Monkey Ball Deluxe was released for the Xbox and PS2 in 2005. This game is a collective port of the first two games on the GameCube, bringing over nearly every level, every minigame from 1 and 2, and even adding a few dozen new levels to boot. This appeared to be the definitive Monkey Ball package, and the inclusion of a little new content could even make somebody who already owned these games consider double dipping. The development history of Super Monkey Ball Deluxe is incredibly mysterious. If you want to hear a deep dive into the development history, I recommend you check out fellow Super Monkey Ball fan and just good YouTuber Jonii's video on this game, as they did a lot of research into this topic. A brief summary of the development from what I could gather is that Amusement Vision, the original developers of the franchise, didn't really have much to do with this game. I mean, for one, their subsidiary of Sega dissolved pretty quick after the release of this game, and thus the development seemed to have been mostly outsourced. But what makes this whole game odd is that at one point there were talks of a sequel to Super Monkey Ball 2, and it's inferred by the fans that this project was ultimately scrapped, and the levels were essentially what became Deluxe's new levels. What makes this whole situation all the more confusing is that there are sources saying Super Monkey Ball 3 was allegedly announced at E3 2003, God, that was a lot of threes, under the name Super Monkey Ball Banana Crazy. In 2006, though, series creator Toshihiro Nagoshi basically said, "I have no clue what the hell you're talking about, get away from me," stating that he didn't even know for sure about an SMB 3 in development. What? So Super Monkey Ball Banana Crazy just turns into this complete question mark in terms of the series. I mean, some say it never happened. That's surely possible. I mean, there's no concrete proof of any video of this game being announced at an alleged E3. Some say that the levels turned into what Deluxe was. Sure, that's also possible. There's trademarks for this project, but then you have the series creators saying, "I have no clue what you're talking about." So who knows? I do think it's kind of funny that Banana Mania kind of just sounds like Banana Crazy, which, if there's some correlation, just turns this thing so much more in depth, because Deluxe is kind of what Banana Mania is. So due to its odd development history, a lot of the time when people talk about this game, it kind of turns into a discussion about the game's history itself and less about the game. And to be fair, that makes sense. This is a port, so what's there really to say about this game? In the context of a review, this has actually been one of the hardest to write so far, because I don't know, what's there to say about it? I mean, I've already talked about these games in extreme detail. Well, there are actually a number of changes, small and big, that we'll try to get into today. I'm not going to talk about the original games themselves too much, because I've already kind of been doing that since July, so go watch those videos if you haven't. Yeah, I'm self-promoting, what are you going to do about it? But seriously, go watch those if you don't know how the game works. Or if you need a quick update, you roll the monkey to the goal, you get points, there's some mini games, alright? Cool. I think one of the more notable changes to this game is that the controls are a crap ton less precise. Super Monkey Ball 1 and Super Monkey Ball 2 were known for their incredibly accurate and fluid controls, which were possible due to the extremely pinpoint analog control stick of the GameCube controller. Since that's out the window now, your options are the Xbox and PS2 controllers, and I think this is as good a time as any to say that the PS2 version of Super Monkey Ball Deluxe is, how do I word this nicely?
terrible.
So the anchor point of this discussion right now is the controls. On Xbox, you can imagine how this control stick would still do the job, kinda, but the PS2 controller, I mean, look at this analog stick. You could probably gauge just by looking at this thing how imprecise this would control. It's slippery and ultimately just really awkward. But even controls aside, the PS2 version of Super Monkey Ball Deluxe is just not a good port. There are longer loads between each level now, some stuttering in between story mode stages, and each time a level starts, it starts over at the beginning of the song. That gets extremely mind-numbing to hear the first few seconds of a track loop and loop and loop. The graphics are also a lot worse. Granted, this isn't a knock against the game. It's expected since the PS2 is a weaker console, and graphics don't inherently make a game bad, but it just feels off. Like the UI, for instance, is just really low resolution. It doesn't feel optimized for the console it's on. And I'm not a game design person, but I imagine you could optimize the UI on the PS2 just to make it a little more clear. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's fine. It just makes it feel a little cheaper. The PS2 version also runs at 30 FPS as opposed to 60. So yeah, listen, the PS2 version is fine if that's all you can play, but it's by far the worst way you could play the classic Monkey Ball games. So I would say to only pick this one up if you're desperate for a classic Monkey Ball fix and the only console you own is the PS2. But it's 2021. You probably have a PC if you're watching this video. Go buy yourself Banana Mania. I'm mostly looking at the Xbox version here. The footage captured, just to be transparent with you all, it's a mod that puts Deluxe into Super Monkey Ball 2 on the GameCube's engine because I don't have access to my original Xbox right now, so some footage will still be Xbox, and this is not a review of the GameCube mod, this is a review of the Xbox version. It's just the footage that's a little different because I just couldn't record my own Xbox footage. The Xbox version isn't scot-free with technical downgrades though. While it's still 60 FPS, the cutscenes in story mode are rendered differently and look way worse than they ever did in SMB 2. It's almost like someone took out and registered HyperCam 2, recorded the footage from SMB 2 and just called it a day. Something like that was probably the most efficient way to transport the cutscenes over, and I wouldn't be surprised if the PS2 version kind of just held the Xbox version back because the Xbox is a more powerful console than the GameCube, but it just doesn't look that good, and it doesn't control the greatest either. Don't get me wrong, it's way better than the PS2 controls, but still just lacking that tight precision. For the most part, it's workable. You can still do precise balancing and movement with some practice, but levels like Exam C are so much harder. From what I've seen on the internet and my experience in the Monkey Ball communities online, some people are fine with it, not thinking it impacts the game that much, but some people, including myself, are just not able to get used to this, and I personally feel like it hurts this version of the game. There are some minor elements missing as well, some backgrounds look a bit worse, and there are small things such as the rolling sound effect being non-existent. There are also some minor things like some songs are different or levels being in the different worlds, and I don't know, those don't bother me that much. Also, people on the internet love to point out that the Xbox 360 backwards compatibility is kind of scuffed, which it is, but are we really going to criticize Sega for that? Is that really a problem with this game specifically? I don't think we can blame Sega for a future console running this game poorly. They didn't even develop it for that. So I blame Bill Gates. In Super Monkey Ball Deluxe, there is one stage missing though. They didn't bring over the GameCube stage. If they did, there would probably be some sort of lawsuit. Could you imagine though if they made a stage that replicated like the original Xbox? And since Xboxes are the size of a football field, you just flew off the abyss, but all you get is a dice. Come on, what the hell is this? For everything that's kind of worse, there are things that are legitimately better. There's some cute quality of life improvements here. No one ever talks about this, but the life scrolling is way faster than the original. It's a small thing, but as someone who's played these games a million times, I immediately noticed it. The levels from Super Monkey Ball 1 are also given names to match levels in 2, which is a nice touch, although some of them you could just tell they had no idea what to name them. What the hell is a Do La Ma? It's like someone tripped on something, screamed in agony, and they just chose to make the sound the level name. I know it's an actual thing. It's just a YouTube joke. Just roll with it. But hey, this is a really damn good way to play these games still. All the levels from Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2 are brought over, as mentioned earlier. The biggest difference between this game and the classics is how these levels are split up. Anyone remember the days when beginner mode was 10 levels? Well, Deluxe multiplies that by 4. The base beginner mode has 40 levels, and it has 20 extra stages, so the base beginner mode in this game is just as long as Super Monkey Ball 1 or 2's expert mode. This is because they just combined 1 and 2's modes for the most part, with occasional exclusive levels being added where they saw fit, specifically mostly in beginner. There's like 20 there, and some in advanced. Advanced has 70 levels and expert has 100, and both these modes increase substantially when you factor that they have extra levels. But if that's not enough for you, exclusive to this game, there's the new ultimate mode. 300 straight levels of Super Monkey Ball goodness, almost every stage from the series up to this point. You can save here in between each difficulty, which makes sense. I honestly love this mode. I think it's a blast to marathon if you have an afternoon to kill, and it makes me really sad that this wasn't in Banana Mania. It's important to note that you need to not lose a continue to make it to the next difficulty mode. Therefore, making it to both Master and Master Expert proves to be one of the most difficult challenges in 6th generation console gaming, especially with how hard Super Monkey Ball 1's Master can be, and now you gotta do it with worse controls. But if you pull it off, it's a very satisfying feeling. In a way, the new arrangement of levels makes complete sense. Super Monkey Ball 1 was an arcade port, and 2 was just a sequel that took many of the original game's precedents. Deluxe, it's a few years later, and therefore it's built for consoles, evident by it coming to 3 of them now, and I totally get wanting to make a beefier experience now that you're exclusively on home consoles. I think I kinda like what Banana Mania did a bit more though, and generally I don't like comparing this to the 2021 remake because that's kind of unfair, which is why I haven't been mentioning it that much, but considering this is just a practical decision on how to split levels up and totally would have been possible in 2005, I think it's fair game. I think Banana Mania kinda nailed how they split the levels up, with the exception of not having an ultimate mode, but I think the way Deluxe does it is totally fine as well. The new levels themselves are kind of strange. I think some of them are good, classic Monkey Ball fun, but then you get to levels that feel like they're big for the sake of being big. Veerfield is pretty impressive at a first glance, but it genuinely just feels like an intern was just having a blast with the level creator.
Hey guys, look at how big we can make these stages.
A lot of the new stages are giant maze stages. These stages in particular are the ones that I think are a travesty in this game. These levels are ridiculously confusing, convoluted, and take forever to get through. No one wins with these stages. The first time player will get lost and has to trial and error it until they can figure out the correct path. They'll lose a bunch of lives, they'll waste time, and the more seasoned players have to sit through a bunch of long, boring stages with almost no enjoyment of second playthroughs in them. Honestly, my first time through on these stages, I just kind of looked it up on YouTube to save myself a headache. The challenge modes aren't the only thing revamped for this game. The story mode also works a bit differently. Honestly, I really like it. Instead of 10 stages here that you have to play, there are now 20 you can pick from, and you still only have to beat 10. You can just pick any combination that you like. This works pretty well in my opinion, because if you are stuck with a particular level, well, you can just choose another one to ram your head against a wall on. The purpose of story mode from SMB2 was to give the player a sense of freedom and experimentation as opposed to a more standard arcade experience, and I think this was a great expansion of that. I've already talked about the minigames in my previous reviews, so I don't really want to retread old ground there, but be assured that every minigame from 1 and 2 is here. The 6 that have sequels from the first game and Monkey Ball 2 are merged into their respective engines. So for instance, Monkey Racing 1 tracks are integrated into 2, there is both the mini golf from 1 and the bad golf from 2, Monkey Target has both the 1 and 2, and so on. Everything is accounted for here, which honestly is a nice touch. They totally could have just ignored those and just made Super Monkey Ball 2's minigames, but they actually took the time to put the ones from 1 in there as well, and I think that's a pretty good touch. But yeah, that's kind of it for new content. They could have done more, but I don't think this was intended to be a full-fledged remake, honestly. This would still be a fair package without new content because this was meant to introduce Monkey Ball to a new group of players. The fact that they added anything at all is a huge plus. Like I said earlier, a veteran of the series might actually want to pick up Deluxe even if they already owned 1 and 2. Another huge benefit to this is that SMB1's levels were really hard to get through and play because of the life system in that game. You only got 3 lives per continued, but here, being an SMB2's gameplay structure, you can actually play these levels without too much difficulty, and I think that's a huge benefit to Deluxe's existence. I was finally able to actually play more of SMB1 due to this game. Anyways, that's all there really is to say about Monkey Ball Deluxe. It's serviceable, and I'd go so far as to say the Xbox version is good. I think this would be my preferred way to play if the controls were just a bit tighter, but as is often, I just prefer having 1 and 2 separately. Although, being able to actually play one's levels in a non-archaic mode, it's so nice. I'm like actually glad I get to see past Expert 7 and SMB1 now.
Also, the main modes are just complete and have more content than ever before. I recommend if you're looking for the definitive way to play the classic Super Monkey Ball games, you get the OG Xbox version of Super Monkey Ball Deluxe. Or just buy Banana Mania. I mean, it's out on every modern console, so